we are going to be covering Separatists, CIS, medalists for our Academy 101 Part 2 segment. This is going to be a little interesting, folks. We're going to go through this. This will probably be a little bit less. There is less meta CIS lists, I think, than before. The one is very highly propagated by Dom, who has played a lot of games. And then there's a few of us that have played this list. It is a fun list, but there is some of this stuff that is not in CIS. It just hasn't won a lot. And the problem is the stuff that wins in CIS is not consistent, right? There's a few consistent ships, like Dirge is a great consistent piece, but we're not seeing as much of the whatever you would call variety or variability for it. So, I don't know, JJ, do you have any thoughts on CIS before we get into it?
CIS is one of those factions that suffers from not having a lot of players play CIS. I think that across the board, when you compare the number of players that are using CIS as their main, they number far fewer than the other factions, which is why we don't see them have high turnouts in a lot of the tournaments there. I still think that CIS has a lot of tools that help them compete with the rest of the meta, and they fly much differently than the rest of the other factions, mainly the droids, right? Because their dials are very unique when you compare it to the rest of the factions, right? A lot of these droids don't have a three bank that's white. They do have a lot of hard turn maneuvers, which allow them to turn into the fight a lot easier. And however, when they need to just take those odd banks, boosts, or angles to go in there, that's what they really suffer with their dials. They also don't have a lot of shields across the board for all these ships, so they are very they're crit magnets. You know, they suffer a lot when they suffer those crits. But they do have a lot of good cheap ships that are glass cannons that they can potentially put out a lot of damage. So they're, if you're going to compare them with any other faction, I feel they resemble a lot more Empire than any other faction. They just don't have the same tools that Empire has, but that's okay because they have tactical droids that can boost their abilities. They do have great pilots in the Rogue class, which has been a boon for CIS, and the fire sprays are always very good for CIS as well.
All right, so let's begin. The first list I have is Sunny, Grievous, Reroll Man, 81, and Dirge. Dirge with proton cannons, contraband, seismic charges. This one has seen marksmanship and proton bombs. I will tell you that in talking with Dom a little bit, the seismic charge contraband is more the go-to now. They're just so much easier to fly when you have contraband, because if you do your boost, focus, or stress, contraband can get you out of something for the next turn if you need to. Then we have Grievous with shield upgrade, Impervium, Solus 1 marksmanship, T81, which is the reroll droid man, Sunfak with graphitic deflection, ensnare, and targeting computer. And again, this, if you want to play more of a knifey Sunfak, you can run like a Predator instead of the graphitic deflection, whatever floats your boat. And then you have energy shell carrying 081 with independent calculates and struts. So this list is kind of your mixed bag. When I flew this list, I typically would either kind of put Dirge alone and Grievous alone on each different side, and then Sunfak with on wherever the hell nobody else is. So I would not put Sunfak by 4 T60s or T65s or T70s, because he's just gonna get eaten. Eaten, however you say that. And in a Han meta, Sunfak has a really hard time struggling with who are you going to give the tractor to? Oh, Han's still gonna shoot you. So This list suffers a little bit, I think, from like a lack of coordinate. A one modded Sunfac is really hard. The targeting computer is great if nobody's shooting at him, but man, I'll tell you what, like if Sunfac gets focused on, holy crap, be very careful. That thing will pop, 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 pop. Grievous all around. You could swap out for the shield upgrade for whatchamacallit, afterburners if you want a little bit more cagey Grievous without the stress, getting the stress when you boost, or if you want to be able to do a one turn, like with Grievous where you have the ability to boost in before you decide what you want to take. You're probably not taking a target lock, but I mean, it's there. But it does allow you to reposition for 1 or 2 turns if you really want to do that, or it does allow Grievous to get out of dodge if Grievous needs to. And then you have reroll man. So you have some pseudo low initiative aces here. And then you have your objective getter, which is 081. Like if you have to pick up crates, put one in the far back. Do not do not put it in the center and send him there. Just put it in the back. Let him one hard. Take his crate and then double calculate and then 2 hard and then just kind of go back and forth. And if they really want to come kill your 2-point ship, that's fine. You just punish them for coming after a 2-point ship and don't put them out in the fray. To me, this list, you take all large obstacles, period. Every one of them is a large obstacle. Your goal is to funnel lanes. That either you can funnel into with Dirge, lanes that you can kind of come around with Grievous. Not having outmaneuver sucks. I love outmaneuver Grievous. I even have a customizable card somebody made and gave to me that had outmaneuver Grievous, and I'm sad I can't run that anymore. AMG, give me a standard loadout Grievous with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like if they were going to make like another scenario pack for the Separatists, like what battle would they use that would include Grievous?
The one where he gets out of his ship and dies.
Exactly, right?
What's the planet with that lizard thing?
I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so that's kind of it is. Guys, what do you think? Do you agree with large obstacles for this list? I know Alex doesn't run this very often, but...
And honestly, if you're going to run large obstacles, especially with Saxman charge with Dirge, try to have a large obstacle near the center as much as possible, just to set up that Dirge Seisman charge. You're going to have the greatest chance to get people to take damage from that obstacle. And you can just ensure that your DFS is nowhere near that. Probably setting up an obstacle close to an objective on your side of the board, beyond range 1 of that other location or obstacle, and you can pretty much open up the board in the center later on for the rest of your list to follow up once you blow that obstacle.
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was just gonna say I figured out the planet name.
Oh, okay.
You can do the liberation of Una Pao.
Unapau.
We need an Obi-Wan pilot with "Hello there" as the subtext.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I think objective-wise, this list does okay in like chance, and it does okay in salvage. Like this is not a horrible salvage list. In fact, Sunfac can actually pick up a crate if you could be maneuverable enough with him and not get cornered. Sunfac can just carry a crate the whole game because your tractor token on yourself is not a maneuver. So you can literally just carry a crate the whole game and hope nobody, marksmanship you or something like that.
Yep.
So really this list doesn't suffer. I don't think this list excels at any specific objective, but this list does not suffer at any specific objective. Except for maybe Scramble. Scramble, with it being lower initiative, is a little bit harder, but again, Sunfac can come back in and take that and just be unmodded. So if you set it up right, you're probably okay, but Scramble is the worst objectives for this list. Counters, what do you think counters this list?
Oh, man, don't get that Sunfac near a Han.
Yeah, definitely like ships with high
Medium and large
initiative.
bases.
Yeah, medium large bases, anything with high initiative as well that can reposition away out of the danger zone for these ships. Definitely have an advantage here, although you always got to be worried about that sun fac and snare that can put you right back where you were. But yeah, I think that probably has the best chance on against this list here. Han definitely being a shining example of like a good ship that can help take on this list. Han has nothing to fear from Sunfax and Snare, so he can easily go into range one and punish Sunfac if he's too careless.
All right. Anything else on this list, or we move on to the next one?
No.
Yeah, well,
All right. By far, the most popular list is 2 fire sprays and Dirge. I did throw 2 lists in here. They're essentially the same thing. There's a Tanner build, what Tanner would build, and then kind of the more popular build, I guess. And I felt at first it would be fair to give you some of that. And JJ, I apologize, but I took some of your upgrades off because
That's fine.
I'm not running. I'm not running 14 points. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that on Sam. That's like this is not going to happen. You're crazy. You're crazy.
It's a control version, but
I don't
it's
care.
fine.
You're crazy, dude. That's crazy to me. So Alex, what does these lists sport?
well, I mean, it's Django's Ham and Dirt. It's pretty straightforward. So the top one, is this the meta one, or is this the one you do?
What's that?
The top one, is that the one that you
Yeah, that's
made?
that. Yeah, sorry, that's probably more of my. That's
Okay.
the one you and I talked. No, it's not. No, that's the more meta one.
Really? Okay. Yeah, so this has Dirge with proton cannons, contraband, the title in seismics.
Or maybe this is mine. No, this is mine.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is mine.
Django with Lone Wolf, Dooku, contraband, seismic charges, delayed fuses, and then Zam with Notorious, Savage, contraband, and Boba Fett.
All right.
Do you want me to do the second one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this one we switch up Django Fett. So instead of Count Dooku, he has Savage and contraband, seismic, delayed fuses, and VTG, which would be replacing the point differential from Dooku and Lone Wolf. It has Zam, which is almost the same thing. This has Notorious, Dooku, and Contraband instead of Savage and Boba. And then this Dirge has Lone Wolf, Proton Cannons, Contraband instead of the seismic charges, which I kind of prefer anyways. The Lone Wolf Dirge version. If you have 3 ships, you might as well bring Lone Wolf somewhere in your list. And I think Dirge is a little bit easier to Lone Wolf it than Django.
Yeah, it's a little easier to get away in this list. So.
Yeah, Django has other important things he needs to do.
So what are you how are you playing this list to win? Right? This is probably not an objective. I don't know, JJ, you played 2 fire sprays for quite a while. What are you doing with this list?
So primarily, this is a very offensive minded type list, right? You're looking to eliminate your enemy as much as possible in order to reduce their effectiveness to contest objectives. So you're usually getting right into the fray. You can send in your third ship, which is Zerge, to go contest objectives, although typically you don't want to. Particularly in salvage, you're looking to just eliminate the salvage carrier, and that's who you're basically going to send your dirge against to use that protein cannon to try to guarantee the crate drop with that particular attack. On assault, you're doing pretty well. You're trying to condense your objective points as much as possible, so that way your fire sprays can be in the middle to contest those objectives. As long as you can do that and keep your time on target, you're going to be on top there. The fire sprays can be particularly difficult on taking them out. More Zam than Django is probably going to be the more aggressive out of the two in contesting those objective points for assault. And then for scramble, Django Django fetch. Again, if you spread out your objective to not be towards the center, forcing 1-on-1 or 1-and-2 engagements with your fire sprays, Django can typically spend his action to scramble and still have mods with Lone Wolf and Count Dooku, and then use the seismic charges to help deal additional damages for people who are pursuing you. So you can definitely take the advantage in that objective that way.
And I assume you bring big obstacles, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
you want to try to minimize the paths where your enemies can pursue you, and funnel them in. And especially if you're carrying seismic charges, just being able to funnel them in and then blow up one of those objectives just helps Django punish those ships that come in against it.
counters to the list. Spike damage, right? Anything that
Alpha
can,
strikes,
like anything that can murder a fire spray. I mean, in fairness, I kind of say like Zam is great in most lists, but you can burn Zam down. Like if you put the fire, there's only 3 ships in here, right? You could put the firepower to them and burn her down.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to reinforce as their action, especially if you know that you're going to be facing down 3 or 4 ships at a time, and not have a really good way to like have an out to art dodge. Being able to take advantage of the reinforce on those fire sprays natively really helps them survive those onslaughts, and then just rely on their passive abilities to have mods there. That's really the only way that you can really counter that kind of offense on there. But typically, yeah, those fire sprays, once those mods are gone, you can burn them down easily like any other ship.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, do you even have an ability to lose a ship here? If you lose a ship, you just lose the game. If you haven't traded for more than equal points,
It's definitely an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think this, like, we've seen Duncan Howard fly a version of this. His was a little bit more bomb centric than this one is. I think you could do this. I think Nate flew this list too from Ohio, Nate May.
Yep.
I think you could do it, but I think this takes a lot of practice. And I think the problem is if you know the gimmicks and you play objectives, you might be able to get away with it, but you have to burn something down. And the reason Dirge is on this list is because Dirge is a 50-50, right? You're not guaranteed to burn Dirge down. But if you play it the way Tanner does, Tanner always loses Dirge because he never somehow gets, except for the one time. But one time I needed it, like at the one time I needed it, it worked. And then when I needed it a second time in the same day for Michigan GT, it did not work. So, yeah, there's that. All right. Anything else about this list, I guess, before we move on to the last one?
You got to be real cagey.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot out the back, run away, be a coward.
Yeah, I think that's the greatest thing about this list. So whether you're using this list, you got to remember that your rear arc is probably your best asset, because you can easily fly past your opponent and take a range 1 shot and do 4 dice rather than try to joust them with your front arc, and then just have them chase you. And if you're an opponent or if you're a player trying to take down this list, don't chase a fire spray. Just don't do it. It's not going to end well for you. Nope.
All right. Let's move on to the last list. I cheated a little. There was some other lists that had higher, but JJ picked this list, and so we're gonna talk about. It's not Rogue 5s because there's only 4 rogues in there, but Reroll Man is pretty damn good as a rogue. So JJ, what is this list, and could you swap out a Magna Guard for 102? That's going to be the question Alex is going to ask in a
100% would.
Yeah, you absolutely could, right? But this is a list that we saw actually do well. It made day 2 for for the Nova Open this past tournament, and it has done. It did make tech putt in another tournament that I forget off the top of my head. But we got four road class fire sprays. Wow, four road class fighters. We got Dirge with proton cannons, contraband cybernetics, and engine upgrade. Cad Bane with marksmanship, sync laser cannons, contraband cybernetics, engine upgrade, and Xanadu Blood title. We got two Manigar protectors with sync laser cannons, Discord missiles, and independent calculations. And they provide that guarded condition, which we'll get to in a second. And then, of course, reroll man DIST 81 with outmaneuver, afterburners, and contingency protocol to round off this list. So that guarded condition, you can typically put it either on Cad Bane or Dirge. And as long as one of these Manigar protectors are in the firing arc and they have a calculate token, which they likely will with independent calculations, Cad Bane will be rolling, or the ship that you assign the guarded condition will be rolling an additional die on defense, and that helps them stay alive a lot longer. And since these Mana Guard protectors always want to have those calculate tokens, that helps them be very effective with sync laser cannons, especially at range 3, just helping deny that extra die at range 3, and also having access to Discord missiles adds extra targets for your opponent to try to have to take down unless they run over them and end up taking critical damage on them. So there's definitely some good utility on it. This one definitely requires a lot of work to master because you don't want to run too fast with the Mandagar protectors, as you want them to be within a fairly good range 2 bubble around whoever they're guarding. And they don't have to be next to each other either. They can be like on the opposite sides to provide maximum coverage for their guarded ship. But yeah, just having access to the sync laser cannons, they don't have to rush into battle. They actually prefer to be out, at range. And as they get closer in, they have those Discourse missiles to help them out. They have those independent calculations to give them those mods that they need, and also provide that guarded condition. And then if your opponent is focusing on taking down these world class starfighters, you got the IS on the flank coming in, going as fast as possible to try to get around the flank, take advantage of the outmaneuver. If your opponent decides to turn and go after the IS, and that's where those sync laser cannons come in and really take advantage of that of that free shot onto that opponent.
So we're gonna ask the question: why not 101 instead of 2 Magna Guard protect? 101 or
102.
102? Sorry, 102.
102 is such an underrated rogue. Lets you spend a calculate. I mean, lets you, if you're getting shot at by someone equal or higher initiative, to just change one of your blanks to a focus result, and then you have a calculate, and you have two of them because you have independent calcs. It's sort of like a bad version of Latrazi. I think he's underrated because he can also still do proton cannons, independent calcs, laser cannons, independent calcs, and engine upgrade. So he's actually like a solid kit.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. I mean, you do lose access to the Discord missile, but honestly, if you're not looking for that, the 102 is definitely a solid option to replace one of the Magna Guards.
Yeah. Who do you Magna Guard? Funny reroll man?
Dick move, but you could.
I would probably do CAD over DIS because you're not going to keep pace with DIS, especially if he starts to try to come in and do hard turns. You don't have the dial to match the same maneuvers as the AS, especially if you're like double calculating with independent calculations. You kind of want a straight trajectory as much as possible or at least a in and out trajectory to take advantage of the one banks on that dial to clear your stress.
Yeah.
So objective wise, I think this list is okay. Objective wise, you're not picking up crates as easily, I don't think. So it's going to suffer at that. You're going to suffer at scramble a little bit, just because of the fact that you're giving up an action and you have no coordinator. Now, I will tell you, DIS loves scramble because he doesn't care about a mod. Like, he don't care. Like, you and he has afterburners. It's especially if you look away from him, you can't joust 3 ships, but you could joust 1 ship typically, and take a scramble action and still be okay. Unless it's Luke, then you're out of luck. But that's different.
Yeah.
I wish they would have given him Predator too. Oh, that was so good. Anyway, now I'm just fantasizing. And obviously this one, you do not need to bring large obstacles, but it does make it easier to funnel ships into your arcs. You're probably going to try to open up that middle, so that you can take the 3 rogues and kind of stick them in the middle. If you're going to put it on Cad Bane, or if you're going to put it on Dirge. I will say Dirge does not deserve an engine upgrade. This is a JJ.
Let's give him
Dirge
Predator.
does not need engine upgrade. You could put Predator, you could put Seismics, you
See,
could do
That's
a lot of
where I
things.
disagree, because there's a lot of turns, especially on turn 1 or turn 2, where you're not going to engage, where you want, especially if you're putting him on the flank, where you want Dirge to go in and just take a boost action, right? And if you're stressing him, you're reducing his dial to do only blue maneuvers the following turn. Engine upgrade gets rid of that problem and allows you to boost in without having to be stressed. And then if you need to hard one the next turn, you don't have to worry about the stress. So there is use for that engine upgrade without having to link it into something else if you know that you're not going to get shots in there. There's a use for engine upgrade on the roads. So
There has been times where I would have been like, wow, I wish I had engine upgrade here. But I set up better. I don't know, like I think you get a lot more use out of Predator than you do engine upgrade.
Yeah. Or you could put Lone Wolf, or you could put Treacherous, which is a little silly, but you could do that. You could also put Seismics. I don't know. I don't disagree. JJ, like on Cad Bane, I won't argue with you as much with the engine
Yeah.
upgrade. I don't like it, but I wouldn't argue about that one as much for the pure fact that Cad gets the actions. So being
Yeah.
able to do the boost without having that, and or being stressed and being able to do a boost, like you could do a barrel roll focus and then boost in. But I would also argue that I wouldn't run sync laser cannon either. I would run proton cannon, but that's just me. Again, I like my proton cannon Cad a lot better, and it opens up the ability, if I want to put Predator on Cad, I can do that. I could put missiles on Cad. There's a lot of things you can do, I think.
yeah, definitely.
So, all right, counters to the list. I guess I think that's the only thing we haven't talked about, right? Is counters.
Probably. I think this falls again down to high initiative, right? If you got that TIE bomber swarm with Empire, you can reliably go in and use saturation salvo to reroll those 2 dice and force them to take those damages in. Vader definitely loves going into these ships and drawing crits onto them there, although probably not against Surge because you don't want to give him, stuff to discard later on. But yeah, I think high initiative like swarms definitely do well against this. They can outgun him.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest deterrent. Or Hans eat this list alive pretty easily too. So Dirge won't die. That's about it.
He's hard to kill. It
So.
says so on the card.
It does. All right. Well, I think that will conclude our Academy 1 series on meta list analysis.